So from the problem video, you'll see that we had the original, all the date times were in GMT, and that was not a match for what we were seeing in Salesforce for the same month. I'm looking at March 2015 here. Same month, the dates were not adding up, the numbers were not adding up. And this was due to being in GMT by default in Einstein Analytics, but the created date is automatically converted to the local time in Salesforce. Okay, so let's see. How did we fix this? How did we get this to add up and show me the correct numbers? In the data manager, when I set up the data flow, we started with leads. For the sake of this demo, I'm only including the date, the created date, the ID, and the lead number, so we can make sure we're comparing the right things and getting an exact match for what we had in Salesforce. Then this is where the magic happened with the time zone. It was a compute expression. We add those from right here and get them connected so that the input is coming from wherever you want the input to be. It could be leads, it could be cases, contacts, whatever. But the Salesforce default date fields for the system dates are going to be in GMT, and you're going to have to convert them to your local time or to various time zones if you use multiple time zones. So the first steps, we would create a created date epoch. The epoch is the number of seconds since January 1st, 1970. It's also called Unix time. And so that is the first step, would be to take the created date in GMT, convert it to the epoch. The next step is to get your time zones epoch from that, which is just math. It's adding or subtracting hours converted to seconds from the original epoch to create your time zones epoch. In many cases, this would be enough to get a time zone out of it, a converted date. But if you're dealing with daylight savings time, it's a little more complicated. So we're going to get into that. Let's review the tool that I set up that makes this whole process a little easier. So on my website, I have a Einstein Analytics Convert Timezone utility. So we're going to take created date in this case. And it's going to output a function here. If I change this, it's going to change the function. All this is really doing is wrapping this variable name in the necessary function to convert it to an epoch. So I'm going to click here and copy it to the clipboard. So this would be the steps I took to create this. I'm going to paste it in here. Now, it's an interesting thing. Even though the created date is a date and it looks like it's in this format already, I cannot pass it directly to date to epoch. It throws an error. I don't know why. So I have to wrap it in the toDate function. If anyone does know why, please leave it in the comments, because I'm legit curious as to why I cannot convert a created date directly to an epoch when it's already in the same format. So that's the first step, is to create a new field. In my case, it's created date epoch. It's going to be a numeric type. I'm going to paste in the function that I pulled from my utility. Precision is going to be 17 and scale of 0. I'm going to copy the name of my new variable here and bring it back to the utility and go to the next step. Let's paste it in here. It's going to default to created date, but you could change it. And then we're going to choose our destination time zone. So we'll see if I choose one that does not have daylight savings time, like it'll say it supports DST in the list if it is a daylight savings time zone. Not all time zones are yet supported. I did not go through the massive headache that it would be to support all of them. But if I get requests to support specific time zones, I'm happy to add them ad hoc. So let's choose a non-DST time zone. For example, we'll do Honolulu. It's GMT minus 10. No daylight savings time support. So you have two options here. You can save an updated epoch for that time zone, or you can just go straight to date and add that here. So if you go this route, it's real simple. You can skip the epoch step and go straight in. So you would save this into this field name, and that would be the date that you would report on and filter in your dashboards in order to see the data as it pertains to that time zone. I'm in Pacific time, and that's a little more complicated, so I'm going to go back. Let's change this. So we support daylight savings time here. Typically it's GMT -8, but if you're in daylight savings time, spring ahead, fall back. So in spring, it goes up an hour and it's going to be -7. And to further complicate things, the daylight savings time change happens at different times in the year. So it'd be the second Sunday in March currently is when it begins, and it ends on the first Sunday in November. And to further expand on that, it's the second Sunday of March at 2 a.m. is when it starts, and it ends at 2 a.m. on the first Sunday of November. If you go back before 2007, I believe, it starts in the first week of April, the first Sunday of April at 2 a.m., and it ends in like the last Sunday of October or something. So if you go back in time, it changes. And it does the same thing for other time zones too. And that's why I didn't build them all out to support them all, because I just don't have that kind of time. So from here, we're going to choose Los Angeles. And the next step is to create this epoch. So create a date, Pacific time epoch, as is my case. And I'm going to be copying that function in here. Same thing. It's numeric, precision of 17, and a scale of 0. That just basically means it's not going to be a decimal. It's going to be a whole number. I'm going to save that. So I will copy this field name because I'm going to need that for my next step over here. And I'm going to go to the next step. Now I'm going to paste in that variable name that I just copied. And because it's going to be calculating when daylight savings time starts on an annual basis, I need to input a start year and an end year here. So if you weren't getting leads or creating cases before the year 2000, then you don't need to go back further than that. If you only had Salesforce active since 2010, you can add 2010 here if you're dealing with created dates and system dates. It does not have to use the default 2000 to 2030, but I'm going to keep that in place here just for the example. And so we're going to show the code. So this gives us a huge switch statement. Well, it's a case statement, but similar to switch in the SAQL language here. And what it's doing, I'm going to copy this so I can bring it over to Visual Studio. What it's saying here is when that created date epoch, the GMT version, is greater than this, and when it's less than or equal to this, it's going to be in daylight savings time. So it's taking the epoch, in my case, it was GMT -8, and it's going to add an hour to it because it's in daylight savings time. It springs forward and added an hour. And I'm going to copy this here, and we are going to check in the Epoch converter. I like this tool, and we'll see when this is. So if it's greater than 1:59:59 a.m. on the first Sunday in April of 2000, if it's greater than this, it's going to be in GMT -7. So to test this, I can add a second to this. And here we go. See, we lost that 2 a.m. hour because of daylight savings time, and now it's in GMT -7. This is because it was in year 2000. It was the first Sunday in April is when it started, and it ends. Let's see when it ends. It looks like the last Sunday in October of 2000. So see, we're less than or equal to, so it's still in -7. But as soon as we go over this, let's see, what would that be? We're going to be losing an hour. We fall back and we're back to -8. Okay, so that's what's happening here. And this was 2000. So if I go down, see 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I believe the next change started in 2007 for Pacific time. Yeah, now we're at the second Sunday in March is when it starts. See how that updated. And the first Sunday in November is when it will end since 2007. Okay, so this is the code that we're going to take, and it's going to return a date, an accurate date in daylight savings time or not. we're going to put that in our created date Pacific time field. So there it is. We're going to save it. It's going to be a date type. I like this format because it includes the full time. You don't have to use that. That's just what I use. And we save. And we can go ahead and propagate. I'll update that. So that's the gist of that. And we can confirm that daylight savings time is working if we scroll down to, you can create a chart like this. You can confirm that it is working now. If I select the 8th, so if I click this date, you're going to see we have in GMT, it was 2 days, right? We had the 8th and then we had the 9th. But in Pacific time, this 71 is Pacific time from the 8th. And that's going to be a match with the 8th that I have in Salesforce. Now to double check my work, you can ensure that the daylight savings time calculation is working by comparing the created times here. So this one was in GMT, it was 8 a.m., which equates to just after 12 a.m. here on Pacific time. Right. So daylight savings time hadn't been in effect yet. It was, so if we take this 8 minus 8, we're going to be with the 0. After 2 a.m., it looks like we had another one. So this came in at 10 o'clock GMT, well, 10:50. But it's after 2 a.m., so daylight savings time went into effect, and now it's at 3 a.m. in Pacific time. So this is 10 minus 7 equals 3. So from here forward, it's going to be the hour minus 7, right? And if we created a report that showed November of the same year, we would see it switch back when daylight savings time ends. So I hope you found this helpful. I hope you find this tool helpful. If you come across any bugs or issues or have questions, please leave a comment. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. That's it. I hope this helps you. Feel free to like, share, subscribe. I hope to have more videos in the future as time allows, and to work on some cool new stuff. So thanks for watching.